You're listening to the When Life Hands You Lennon's podcast.
But in an entry-level film production, it's one strike and you're out. You're fired. I'm not calling you back.
If your goal today is to make a basket, we're gonna make that basket.
The minute you create something, as soon as it's made tangible, you have a copyright in it.
How do I get our guys to sound that big, that full when they do the harmonies?
And I'm your host, Lennon Seahawk. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lennon's. This week's episode features Michael Weiss, who is the head of A&R at UnitedMasters, a massive global music distribution company that has seen a lot of success recently with their features and partnerships opportunities for their artists. So Michael talks a lot about what he looks for being an A&R at a distribution company versus a label, because there are some differences and what he's looking for. He talks about some philosophies and pillars that kind of make a global superstar and gives really good examples on some artists who are doing super well today and really kind of confirm those philosophies for him. We talk about Lana Del Rey and most recently and namely Lil Nas X because of his marketing genius and how he uses a lot of incredibly creative techniques to market his music and his brand. We also talk about how the difference between smaller artists and bigger artists, because YouTube, for example, their algorithm tends to favor larger channels that get more engagement, likes, comments, subscriptions, views, etc. So it makes it very difficult for smaller channels that are creating quality content to grow. And that's kind of similar in the music industry. It's very difficult for artists who are smaller and really building up a career to stand out amongst those who are really gaining some serious traction on social media. So we talk about those differences and what makes those differences and how we can kind of bridge the gap between those. And Michael gives some really good advice for artists to help ease that transition and some things to think about as you continue to grow your own career. So before we jump into the conversation, I want to remind you to sign up to my mailing list. That helps me notify you when new episodes like this are live. You can find it on lennonseahawk.com and sign up directly there. I would appreciate if you would join my Discord server. My Discord server is something new, and we talk about music business and podcasts and news and production and sound design, and there's an amazing community in there. We're always in there discussing these types of things, and that's one of the best ways to get a hold of me and ask any questions is through Discord. I also appreciate if you would follow me on Instagram and Twitter and all the social media sites. You can follow me at Lennon Seahawk on Instagram. I'm pretty active there. If you or somebody you know would be a good guest for the show, there is a link to a guest request form. Fill that out so I can take a little look-see. And lastly, I would appreciate a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get discovered by new listeners and new viewers, and helps continue to build that amazing community of incredible professionals like yourself. Without further ado, and without that little rant over with, let's dive in to this amazing, insightful conversation with the head of A&R at UnitedMasters, Michael Weiss. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited to chat with you and learn a little bit more about what you've done in the industry, what you're doing with UnitedMasters, and kind of where you think the kind of the landscape of the industry's at.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Happy to have you. Well, first of all, you got to tell us about this room. Where is this room located with all these amazing speakers?
Yes. So I'm in the UnitedMasters office right now in Dumbo, Brooklyn. This is not a virtual background. This is real. We got the real speakers here. And, it's just a part of our beautiful offices here right on the waterfront.
Beautiful. And how long have you been at UnitedMasters now?
I have been at UnitedMasters I'm coming up on 3 years. I joined the company in November of 2018. So I'm one of the longer lasting employees at this point. Have been here from very early days.
Great. And are these speakers behind you, are they all functional or are they just display?
I'll say this, we can blast some music in here. That's what I'll say.
Yes. And what's your favorite track that you've blasted in there?
I we use this room a lot for listening to mixes on records, working out production on different artists that we have signed to the roster. This is really where we dive in from an A&R perspective and can work with a number of, the artists that we have on the roster.
Sweet. So to get a better grounding of who you are, tell us a little bit about where you came from so we can get some background and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start, but I could start all the way at the beginning. I'm third generation in the music business. It very much runs in the family. My dad is a record executive. My grandfather owned and ran his own record label. His brother owned and ran his own record label. And so it's always been something that I've wanted to do, always been something that has very much just kind of like run in my blood and something that I always planned on doing. There was never really, another choice for me, even though I was probably dissuaded a bit to go into music. I was told I should be an accountant or a lawyer or something that's a little bit more traditional and secure. But it's always been my passion, always been the thing that really drives me the most. And so went to school in Miami, University of Miami, started throwing shows, promoting, more so throwing shows than promoting. But my freshman year, we threw our first show, through Big Sean and Mike Posner. Proud of the fact that I booked both of them for like $3,500 all in, flights, hotels. I think Big Sean even slept on my friend's couch. Like, it was before either of them had really broken. That show was not a success because police raided the whole thing, some Miami South Beach politics, but we don't need to go into that detail. But and then I started managing artists when I was a senior in college. Managed my first major label act that senior year by an artist named Chris Cab, who was signed to Island Records at the time, worked heavily with Wyclef and Pharrell. And that's where I just, got my foot in the door and started working there. He was a Miami kid that I got very lucky and the opportunity presented itself and got me into management. And I didn't have any idea what I was doing, but was just trying to figure it out one day at a time and add value. So, not to be too long-winded with it, but from there, I parlayed that into a job in Los Angeles. I started working through relationships and connections, started working for Larry Rudolph, who managed Miley, Britney Spears. He managed will.i.am and Aerosmith, Travis Scott very briefly for a couple months, Fifth Harmony. And so Larry is he's a legendary manager, started working for him. I honestly, I was just kind of shadowing him for the first couple months. We were getting ready to launch Britney's Vegas show. And so he then moved shortly thereafter to Vegas, kind of left me in this kind of hole of what am I, if I'm not really shadowing him, not really providing things on a day-to-day basis, what can I do? And I just tried to provide as much value as possible to everybody in the office and make myself as useful as possible, which eventually opened up to an assistant position for Adam Lieber, who was Larry's partner at the time. Adam, I was his assistant for a couple months, and then Adam was really kind of like the one on the reins of managing Miley Cyrus. Noah came in, Miley's younger sister, and she was 15 at the time, had only recorded one song in her life, and she wanted Adam and the team to manage her. And Adam was kind of like, Mike, is this something that you're interested in? you want to jump at this? And I was like, yeah, 100%, let's do it. And so I started managing Noah. I don't even know what year it was, but started managing Noah and just started really diving in, making records, developing her live show, developing her brand, kind of building her as an artist from the ground up. And then, we put out Make Me Cry, which was her first single ever, which went platinum in a bunch of countries around the world. Labyrinth, she did the record with Labyrinth. Mm-hmm. I started managing Labyrinth as well. And so then I was managing Noah and Labyrinth for a couple of years, and went on to have a bunch of success with them. And Labyrinth, we built the super group LSD, Labyrinth See a Diplo collaboration project, which I was very, very proud of. And then, and then just, built Noah and Lab up for a couple of years, and super proud that Lab has done now the Euphoria soundtrack. He's got cuts on a Kanye project. He's got Weekend cuts and Ed Sheeran cuts. He did all that. Like, he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented producer, songwriter, artists in the world. And Noah became a Grammy nominated Best New Artist, which is awesome. And so after some time, it was just the right time. And I made the decision to leave Maverick, which is where Larry and Adam were, and where I was for those 5 years, and had kind of this decision to make of where to go next, whether it be another management company. And I figured, I've spent the past 5 years building artists from the ground up. I love it, but I also want to kind of expand my wings a little bit and help build a business from the ground up. And that led me to UnitedMasters, where I spent some time with Steve Stout, who's our CEO. And I just saw the vision. I saw the vision for the future of the music industry, of where I thought the industry was going. We had a shared vision as to what independence looked like, where music was going. And I decided to take the bet on the future of the business, rather than going to kind of like a more established brand and more established company. And so far, it's paid off. It's been great so far. And it's, been a beautiful journey these past 3 years since I've been at UnitedMasters.
Yeah. And you get to listen to music in amazing rooms like that.
That's, big perk of the job.
Yeah, for sure. So if you weren't doing music, what would you be doing?
It's a great question. I would probably I took my LSATs when I graduated college. And so I would probably be a lawyer, but I'm really not. The writing and reading are not my skill sets per se. I'm more of a
They do a lot of that.
Guy. A lot of that. I like the deal making aspect of things. I like really the creative aspect of deals, but I think I would be a lawyer, or I would be some sort of entrepreneur creating businesses, and trying to really forge my own destiny. But
what kind of attorney would you be? Entertainment?
It's a tough question. I would say entertainment, but if I weren't in music, it's very much a huge part of my identity. That if I take that aspect out of it, and say, where would I be? What would I be doing otherwise? It's very hard to say, if we're going into like a therapy session here, who I would be without my music career, my music business, my background. It's a phenomenal question.
Yeah. So, what's your kind of your day-to-day look like at UnitedMasters?
So a good number of meetings. It is a pretty hectic schedule. It's evolved a lot over the past 3 years as the company has grown and evolved. I used to be doing a million different things at the company, touching so many different areas, which is what I really loved about it, is being able to build so many different areas. It was kind of like the manager in me, that, managers are the jack of all trades, masters of none, as I say. And so I was getting my hands dirty working closely on our brand partnerships deal when we just signed our partnership with the NBA. And we're doing all the music for NBA, doing music for 2K, when we were signing new deals with like American Eagle or ESPN, I was a part of those conversations, not necessarily leading them, but just helping inform the music strategy around them and helping deliver artists and songs with it. As we expanded our business, there was points where I ran operations at the company for a year and a half. And so ran the full scope of distribution operations, anywhere from our partnerships with Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Tidal, SoundCloud, et cetera, all the way through to our release queue, content review, content ID, and our customer support. So have kind of overseen and done a lot in those areas as well. And then, but what I'm really here for and what my main job is I oversee and run our A&R department, and now our full label business with Dave Melhado, who's my partner on all things. And so now it's really running and operating a record label on the day-to-day and crafting records, discovering new artists, building those artists, signing, doing different deals, finding the right partners, and really just getting out there and making things happen to become a competitive label in the business.
So what does the A&R process look like these days? I know a lot of A&Rs are working at major record labels, but not necessarily distribution companies. Is one of the more rare people that I've had on the show is on the distribution arm. So what is the difference between kind of an A&R at a major label and then versus a distributor?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'd say for most distributors, it's a little bit of a different situation. But I would say all distributors are starting to move more in line towards what the major labels have been doing, because that's the way that the industry is shifting. There used to be, you used to be able to get only real proper A&R service at the major labels. And our whole philosophy and approach is that we're going to provide real label support, real label A&R resources, real label marketing resources, with the exception being that you own your masters. And so in a typical distributor's situation, it's very much a talent discovery. It's very much scouting acts, signing them early, making sure that they're, getting on board to use whatever distribution platform you're using. And then really, it's once they're on, they're kind of passed over to marketing and they make the music, they do their thing. That's pretty much where it starts and ends. For us, because we take a different approach and our whole philosophy is being the future and innovation to the music industry and being a disruptor, we very much, like the team that I have assembled here on an A&R front, like we take the philosophy, if I was head of A&R at a major record label, these are the people that I would hire to be A&Rs. In the same capacity that if I was we don't sign anything here to our roster, to our label roster, that we wouldn't sign if we were at a major label. Our goal is to be extremely competitive in that regard. And so for us, I can't speak on the other distributors, but for us, it's about finding great talent, signing the talent, developing the talent, getting them in the room with the right writers and producers, finding the right features, and really kind of like helping through the entire record making process to guide them. But of course, because we are champions of independence and artist creativity, the artists very much guide that process, and we can be there to help facilitate and add value where we can and where we see the direction of these projects needing to go. So the artist is definitely, we love artists that are in the driver's seat and can really take the ball and run with it. And really just create and have us take it to the next level.
So where are you finding the talent? Are you actively scouting them? Are they coming to you? Are you and then vetting them? Like, what's kind of that process like?
Yeah, we're actively scouting. We are taking a number of different approaches. A&R has changed significantly over the past few years with research A&R, with data. With kind of like data mining and who can collect as much data and gather and predict trends as early as possible. The beauty is that we're a music tech company, and so we have a lot of those resources internally. We also have a top of funnel where we have over 1 million artists that distribute through UnitedMasters already. And so if we can be kind of the inside track to those artists that are already using our platform, it gives us it gives us a first step advantage to find those artists earlier by using that data. But we're finding artists in the same capacity that anybody else is. We've got a number of consultants that are great managers or A&Rs or producers that are out there in the mix, in the culture, finding what artists are buzzing in Atlanta or LA or Memphis, Dallas, all throughout the country. We have a team that is doing research A&R that's both scouting data internally, as I mentioned, of artists that are distributing through UnitedMasters, but also externally. Both leveraging relationships and just discovering talent across the internet and in person. It's wherever we can find it, we're searching.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that's always confused me with kind of this whole, everybody's like, oh, we want to sign the next up and coming talent. Well,
Yeah.
what does that really mean? So does that mean becoming successful on Spotify? Does that mean becoming successful in sync licensing? Is that becoming successful in the college market? Is that becoming successful in the charts? Like what is the defining factor, and what types of artists are you looking to sign?
I'd say, first off, great question. I'd say it's shifted. I think the answer that you would get 5 years ago or 10 years ago would be different than it would be 20 years ago, and definitely different than it would be today.
Sure.
The beauty is that it's so democratized that you can be an artist with a 50,000 person fan base and make a sustainable living on it, and have a listener ratio of 10x where each fan is listening to a song 10 times a day because they just love that artist so much. And they're not charting, they're not making, big radio hits. They're not everywhere. They're not all over the place, but they have a core fan base that really buys into the records and is consistently streaming. So that artist has high performance and growth. At the same time, like I'd say when we're talking about kind of like the next up and comer, traditionally we're looking to break a big act. We're looking to break someone, like Kid Laroi is the one that's very much been the biggest artist of this past year that has really risen from nowhere, and just like a kid making music out of New Zealand or Australia, wherever he's from, and into a global superstar. And so that's the dream. That's the goal. Like when 300 signed Megan Thee Stallion a couple of years ago, like that, they were developing the next up and coming superstar, and she had it, and they provided a lot of the right resources around it. And so at the end of the day, we're looking for a couple, 1 to 3 flagship artists that we can really kind of like break the mold with, how we had NLE Choppa initially, had Lil Tecca initially, and really start to break those artists on a big scale. And then we can build a really sustainable roster around it of high performing, really quality artists that we want to take that big shot with. We want to go all the way with those artists, but it's not do or die, make or break. If they build a strong fan base, Toby and Wigwe, who we have on our roster right now, is an amazing example of someone who's built a cult-like fan base, has built an amazing business for himself, has done it completely independently, hasn't had anything chart or any top 40 hits or anything like that, but has built a really great business for himself, a really great touring business, really great streaming business, really great merch business, a really strong brand and aesthetic. And he's just, there's such a range of amazing artists out there that have opportunity now that, we're trying to not necessarily be a gatekeeper. We're trying to serve and be able to provide value for anybody and everybody that's looking to make music.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good answer. It's kind of interesting. So I want to get your thoughts on something that I was researching the other day, and this is kind of outside the realm of music, but it's somewhat in the realm. So I was watching some videos. I'm trying to grow a YouTube channel and build up whatever it is. And I was watching some tips and tricks that YouTube had provided on how the algorithm works and how people discover content and stuff. And a lot of people in the comments on those videos were explaining, well, this algorithm is exactly why smaller channels can't grow into the already existing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers, because they get so much engagement, and the algorithm favors those channels over the smaller ones. So how can we kind of bridge that gap in whether it's, I mean, obviously we don't have control over these companies' algorithms, but putting the spotlight on smaller up and coming artists rather than artists who have already established a fan base and don't necessarily need the expansive growth that somebody who is literally in their room recording their fifth album and just not seeing any success.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a number of theories on all of these things that I'm happy to give my thoughts on.
Sure.
Okay, so where should I start in that question? YouTube, smaller accounts, and how they can compete against the bigger fish that have already, have well in the scenes.
There's a big gap between the larger and the smaller channels and artists. Same thing in the music industry.
Yeah. So my recommendation there would be really to focus on the content. I've managed artists from the ground up where we spent an enormous amount of time trying to work the algorithms, that we tried to figure out the best ways to optimize, the best ways to make sure that if we created the right piece of content, it could get out there and be as visible as possible. But I think what's beautiful about these, where yes, there are still gatekeepers, but the gatekeeper is the algorithm now. The beautiful thing about the algorithm is that it is geared towards performing and high performing content. So the algorithm, while yes, it may not pump a channel overnight into massive success, if there is consistent quality content that people believe in and there's engagement, like they are basing things off of real metrics around engagement rate, watch time, comments, likes, a number of different factors that are their way of democratizing it, of predicting here's how this content is performing based off of just like what the pure data analytics and statistics are. And so, of course, there's never going to be a system that's perfect where people are always trying to beat a system. If you're trying to come today and say, okay, cool, how do we make sure that this channel that we're optimizing and building exposure as much as possible, but the content isn't great, then at the end of the day, it can only get as much juice out of the content that it could possibly get in the same capacity that a single can grow legs and do things on its own. When the single is amazing, when the record is fantastic, it will continue to grow and do things on its own. You got to grease the wheels a little bit and try and just add a little bit of fuel to the fire when you see those things happening. But at the end of the day, the great content wins. The stuff that's shareable, the stuff that people love, the stuff that people resonate with, that evokes an emotion is what is going to end up sticking and shining through. And so that's where, I used to live very much on optimizing algorithms, and it's necessary as a baseline and a foundation, but it's really like, it's important to not lose the forest between the trees and focus on what's really there that people are consuming. Because at any moment, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, whomever can change the algorithm because they hone something and feel and realize that people are working that algorithm. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there, with no luck, because all of a sudden your path towards excellence was reliant on optimizing the algorithm. And so if content is great, if records are great, if visuals are great, if whatever it is great, the algorithm will find a way to make that visible. It's like it's a different time, very much a different time. But my grandfather always said that a hit song is like a tennis ball in a pool. It always floats to the top. Takes time, but it'll always float to the top. And that's what we're seeing now. It's with this democratization. It's why you're seeing records from 15, 20 years ago, 7 years ago, all over the place, that all of a sudden are re-breaking on TikTok, because all of a sudden there's an opportunity for them again. And it's just, there's no gatekeeper. The algorithm says this is great content. People are consuming it or they're not. And so it's a scary thing in industry terms because there's not as much control. We have far less control in the industry as we once did, but it's a beautiful thing in that the content really is king.
Mm. So when you're looking for an artist, what type of content are you looking for? Are you looking for a specific type, or is it just kind of anything? And what are your kind of gauges or check boxes that's like, okay, this is good, it meets this, it does this?
Yeah.
And are you looking for numbers? Are you, or would you pick up and sign an artist that doesn't have anything?
Yeah. So there is, I could get into like my whole philosophical answer to that is very much structured and drawn out and like visualized. And I can give you the, like, you know, there's the more and more that it comes down to it, a lot of it is gut. Do you believe in the artist?
Sure.
The data can help inform these things. I'm very much someone that uses data. I believe that you now have the opportunity more so than ever to determine, like, statistically, there's big enough sample sizes. If an artist puts out a song, and even if 100 people listen to it, the statistical sample size of 100 is you know, we think back to like high school stat, that's a good sample size. N equals 100 is a good sample size.
Mm-hmm.
And so while yes, there is some data that you can use to determine it, is it purely streams? No, I think that those things are way too competitive nowadays. And there are a lot of people juicing the algorithms, and it gets really expensive really, really quickly in the harsh competitiveness of the major labels competing over new data trending artists. It's incredibly difficult. We've never been at a more competitive time to try and sign things. And every label has gotten great at finding things based off of discovery. And so for me, what I look for, it's really like I have a 3-pillar theory, basically. Okay. And this is pillar 1, great content, great music. And this applies, honestly, my 3-pillar philosophy applies to artists. It applies to any creator. It can apply to a YouTube channel. It can apply to an influencer. It can apply to a musician. It can apply to whomever. But first is great content. And whether that be great music, great visual content, just the core of it has to be great. So within that, I'm looking for a unique vocal tone. It's incredibly important to have a unique vocal tone and vocal signature. You think Rihanna, like, you know, after the first time you've listened to a Rihanna song, if you didn't know who she was, you listen to a Rihanna song. The second time you hear a Rihanna song, oh, that's Rihanna. You know, you listen to a Young Thug record. The next time you listen to you know that's Young Thug. And so vocals, Kid Laroi, Miley, like Halsey, all the biggest artists, Sam Smith, Ed Sheeran, Adele, like, they have, yes, they can sing their asses off, but they have the most distinct vocal tone. Like, you know, when you hear them, exactly who it is. So that's incredibly important. Great music and great perspective, really great point of view. Like, all of the greatest artists of our time have a perspective. They have a point of view. They stand for something. They believe in something. Whether you can identify it or not as a fan doesn't matter, but you feel it. You know when there's something there and when there's not. You know that Lana Del Rey is, you know, like, if you were to put Lana Del Rey into one sentence of what she stands for, Lana Del Rey is the dark side of the 1960s American dream. You know, like that is Lana Del Rey, and everything she does fits into that. She's never going to say, I am the dark side of the American dream of the 50s and 60s, but you're looking for that motion and that energy. Lana Del Rey provides that, you know, and she provides the perspective and unique point of view that brings that energy. So that's incredibly important. That's the pure creative side. That's kind of my world in the A&R perspective. Like, to break an artist, I look for that. I then look for the unique, their unique world, which I think ties into that Lana Del Rey piece. Do they have a unique world and perspective is pillar 2. For example, with Noah Cyrus is, was the dark, depressed pop girl who's the misfit of her perfect Hollywood family. And that's Noah Cyrus, that's who, I love Noah to death. The brand of Noah Cyrus is that, Labyrinth was this eccentric genius that floated through the real world in his own unique headspace. And that was his world. And it's creating these perspectives in these worlds that they help their fans see life through. And then the third pillar there is, do they have something to talk about other than the music? We can't just talk about the music, because no one will know, academics or our generation music or, Shade Room or whomever, they're not going to post how great did the new Boozy song sound. They're going to post, or, they're going to post of some controversy, something that's happening that then drives fans to pay attention. The best in the world at it is Lil Nas X. No one is better than him right now. He knows how to make people talk. The best at it 2 years ago was 6ix9ine, knows how to make people talk. And that just drives eyeballs and attention. And if you can create those moments that drive attention, if you can drive attention to you, have your own unique perspective and world that fans then can enter and be a part of and have it be great music, great content, great everything, you can be, that's what a superstar is. A superstar has all three of those pillars. And then different artists at different levels have one or two. You need typically two, but a Tame Impala has two. They don't have the big hit records, but they have this world, this artist world, and they have amazing music, but they don't really have those commercial mainstream talking points where everybody's talking about they did this, that, and the third. And so then you have, you're Jason Derulo's, who made great hit records, had some things to talk about, but there was no real artist world there. And so it's those are your more traditional pop artists. And so that's when I'm looking to sign things, I'm looking for no artist at day one is going to have all three. You're never going to have. You're hoping to find someone that you can see. My team makes fun of me when I use this reference, but that you can see the statue in the block of marble, and you can see this person, given this right shift in this right direction, can be the next superstar. Can be the next Kendrick Lamar, the next Drake, the next Miley, the next whomever. And so, there are a large number of factors that go into it. And then at the end of the day, you just got to trust your gut, So that's my long-winded, answer for all of that.
No, that's a lot of really good information. I like the 3-pillar kind of approach, and I think that gives a lot of artists who are looking to grow and some things to think about and things to work on as they're building their careers. And I think the thing that I see a lot of people struggling with is their branding and their voice, and it's almost like it's forced, and it doesn't feel organic, and it's almost fake. And it's interesting because you can read through that, even through an Instagram post. I can read this isn't authentic to who you are as a person. I've seen you live, I've seen you in TikTok videos, I've seen you do interviews with a host of people. This post is just not genuine, and I scroll right past it. Yep. So I find that that's the most important part for relatability to an artist, because some of my favorite artists are ones that I can relate to, whether that's lyrically, creatively, visually, whatever it is, that really makes me stick and keep with them as an artist.
Yeah.
So can you talk about developing that once you can see that statue in the marble, talk about how you're kind of working through those pillars to help the artist develop them?
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'll say, it is extraordinarily difficult as an artist to be vulnerable and to put yourself out there and be authentic. life is hard enough as it is. For most of us, we go and we try and be our most authentic selves and be true to who we are and be genuine, authentic, real. And we don't have to see people commenting how they feel about that genuine, like our authentic selves. No one's commenting at us, criticizing us, like the horrible things that people would say about Noah when she was 15, 16 years old, even when she was 11 or 12 before having a music career. It was just horrid. It was like, it was traumatizing. It was terrible. And so it is no small feat for anybody with a following, without a following, to put themselves out there publicly and just continue, whether they find acceptance or not via the people that are paying attention to them, to stay open and vulnerable. It is so hard. So to the artists that can do that, I give tremendous kudos, because I know I couldn't do it. I try and walk into a room with 3 friends and be genuine and honest and open and my authentic self, be vulnerable. And it's like, it's not easy. It's life. And so to do that for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, incredibly difficult, especially when they're really giving you their unfiltered opinions or just trying to bring you down. But having said that, what I like to do is, because it's incredibly difficult, we are all complex people, right? Every person, every superstar, every human out there is a complex individual that can't necessarily be boiled down to just a singular brand, right? Take Lana Del Rey, for example. She is far more she has days where she's happy, days where she's sad, days where she wants to, I'm sure, go like shopping and buy a bunch of shit, and days where she wants to just stay at home and do nothing, days where she goes out with friends, and days where she's a recluse. We all do. That's everybody. Mm-hmm. But how do you put yourself out there to people that don't know you on a personal basis every single day and keep that authenticity, keep that through line? And it's really difficult because it needs to be simplified for a mass consumption of an audience, because unless you're going to be 100% vulnerable, which no one can be because it is too painful. And so I like to find that through line, like what creative purpose does this artist serve? Where I gave Lana Del Rey the example, it's like, for her to be authentic, she has to embody that 1950s, 1960s American dream, dark side of the American dream. And so, one day she may be posting something that's the antithesis of that, because that's how she feels that day. But if she has that North Star in her head of, my brand is the 1950s, 1960s dark side of the American dream, does this post represent that? Yes. Cool. Then it's fine to post. I don't even need to think about it anymore. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to belabor the decision whether to post this, to do that kind of video, to do that. I can just say, cool. Does this fit my site? Yes or no? Boom. We're on to the next thing. It's like building a house with a blueprint. It's like when you have the blueprint and the blueprint's authentic, it's a lot easier. But if you're building it all brick by brick, and if you're saying at every step of the way, who am I? What kind of kitchen am I? Am I a modern kitchen? Am I a Victorian kitchen? Well, the living room was Victorian. The dining room was modern. The bedrooms are like classic. Who knows? So how do I know? All of a sudden, the whole thing becomes a mess, and it's not genuine. It's not authentic. It's not real. But it's really like a lack of commitment to a core vision, and sometimes both not being human and enough and being too human at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some good examples. And I like how you reference Lana Del Rey is a good example, but I think more currently is Lil Nas X. And I love how he's able to take such harsh criticisms and just turn them into perfect marketing strategies. And he just makes fun of all these people who are making fun of him and just doesn't let it get to, it probably gets to him to some degree, but he doesn't let it get to him in a sense where it drags his career down. Like, he used it to market his entire recent album. Genius.
He's brilliant. Lil Nas X is absolutely brilliant. He is the number one marketer in the world, and number one as an artist marketer, number one with creative vision. he is the best at it. And what's also amazing about Nas, like, that's just him. Like he is the best at it. It's not like anything that he could have necessarily, like he was groomed for it. He had trained himself for it without ever even realizing, like, you know, I know a lot of people know this, but like he was a Nicki Minaj Stan account before he was Lil Nas X. And so what that means is like he was the super fan that knew exactly what to look for in an artist. He knew what he loved about what Nicki did when she did something like this. He knew what he didn't like when she did something like this. He knew what the fans were saying and thinking and feeling. He felt the temperature of every single thing that the fans did. And he could know, like, people are going to love this. People are going to hate this. This is what people really feel. Like if I ever said something mean online, I didn't actually hate the person. I was just like, that's how I felt at the moment I wrote it. So I'm not going to take it that personally myself. So he's seen it and lived it. And he is so close to culture and to the psyche of the public that, like, the super fans control the narrative. The super fans are the ones that care the most. They control the narrative. They're the ones that talk about things which get everybody else to talk about things. And being the person that was that has set him up for the ultimate success of it. And he certainly, like, he puts on the best public face for it, but he certainly feels it when there are difficult times. He is a human being with complex emotions, and he is just amazing at knowing when to turn it on and off. And, you know, I could not be more proud of his team, more proud of him, because my old boss, who I used to work for, manages Lil Nas X, and my old, like, they've done such a fantastic job. You know, just shout out to all of them, because he's what a career he's built.
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder if he even needs a manager. He just does everything himself, because a lot of it is his own works and ideas, right?
Creatively, yes.
Creatively, yes.
Management is extremely important.
Yeah,
extremely important. There are just so many things that need to happen on a day-by-day basis that you need to we the public only see a certain amount of what happens. We don't see all the conversations that happen behind the scenes, all the strategizing, all of the decisions around timelines and rollouts and touring and, you know, merch, and like how to, like, Nas has the idea, this amazing idea for doing, you know, some shoe, you know, for doing the Nike shoe. But then management goes and executes it and makes it all happen. They go make the deal. They go find the partner. They go, you know, negotiate how it's going to happen, coordinate the rollout. You know, they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the work that they put in. And I'll say all managers, like, management is one of the hardest jobs, and you don't really get it unless you've been a manager. But you dedicate your life to someone 24/7. You're there for this person, for the success of their career. And yeah, your success is tied to theirs, but you build your whole life around it. You leave your family for weeks or months at a time to go on tour with the artist. You travel incessantly. You're up till all wee hours on the artist schedule. You know, it's a very much underappreciated job. And those that do it and can build long-lasting, successful careers, I just want to make sure they have their props, because it is no small feat.
Yeah, it's I have a good friend who's been a manager for 10 years, and he's kind of stepping away from it now because it's just so much, and he's, finding interest in other things at this point. But he always told me the advice I give to people who want to be managers is don't do it.
Yep.
Because it's so, there was times where, he managed an artist who was in Japan at the time, or a Japanese artist, Korean artist. And so like the time difference was so severe. And he's like, I was taking calls at 2:33 a.m. in the morning and, trying to make sure that they're got picked up by their Uber or their bus or whatever it was. And it just got to be everything. He's like, it got to be too much. Yeah. And
when I was a manager, I managed Noah Cyrus, who was LA based. I was based in LA. and I managed Labyrinth, who was primarily UK based. So I was on pretty much a 24-hour schedule. I'd wake up each morning with a full day of emails and have to try and knock those out by 11 or noon, get to work on the NOAA stuff from that point forward, and just, to make it all happen. Everything that happens, you watch an award show, the amount of time, energy, and effort that goes into just showing up for the red carpet and getting the seats properly put in place so that you're sitting in the right place next to this person, that person, whomever, getting a presenter slot. And then you throw performance into the mix, and it's like rehearsals and ideating, creative, putting the logistics of the entire event together. Like, it is incredibly, incredibly difficult and a very challenging job, but can also be extremely rewarding. But most of the times it's not.
Yeah. Are you still doing management, or are you completely stepped away from that and just UnitedMasters?
Stepped away from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just doing UnitedMasters right now, correct?
Yeah.
So a little bit of a detour. What kind of music do you listen to on a day-to-day basis? Like, what's typically playing on your Spotify or Apple Music?
I listen to a wide array of things, primarily pop, hip hop, R&B, I'd say are the worlds that I love and listen to the most. Like, I'm spending a lot of time lately listening to the most recent Ed Sheeran album, which came out last week.
Yep.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
But a lot of hip hop, a lot of up and coming artists. Like, I spend more time listening to things that I am actively discovering or coming across, or that my team is finding, or records that we're making with our own artists, diving into those records. Like, that's where a lot of my listening comes from. I don't, there's not as much listening for pleasure in my mind, because I've never looked at music that way, because I've grown up in the business.
Sure.
And so it's always with this kind of like watchful ear or present ear of start listening to a record. I'm thinking through the mixes of what these, how Ed Sheeran went through the mix process, and how, what different elements they added to the records. And so the mind doesn't really turn off for pleasing consumption, but it's a wide array: pop, hip hop, R&B.
Okay. Yeah, I've been a musician for 15 years, so every time I listen to music, I'm always listening like, oh, I love how they mix that, and the master sounds great, and I love that effect that they did in the vocal, or whatever it is. It's like I can't just listen to the music and enjoy it. It's always like a hyper analytical perspective. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to separate that. And I went out for a dinner last week with a friend, and he was talking about how he's a rapper, and how he's able to separate himself from the production side and just listening to music for pleasure. And he's like, once you're able to do that, it's like it's a game changer. Like, well, that's not an easy thing to do.
Not an easy thing to do at all. No, it takes time and practice.
It does. It does. Well, we're coming up on an hour here. I think this has been an amazing conversation. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's probably coming up to the end of your day at, in New York. So how can the listeners keep up with you or the work that you're doing, or UnitedMasters is working on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, follow UnitedMasters on Instagram. We are at UnitedMasters on TikTok. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. I like to put the company, my artists, the team out there. We're building something really special here right now at UnitedMasters. We genuinely believe we're building the future of the music industry, the direction of where things are going. We're building a label business where, artists get the full resources of a label, but where they own their masters. We're partnering with different brands, TikTok, ESPN, NBA, 2K, American Eagle, and Twitch. The list goes on to partner and give opportunities to our artists. We have a ton of sync opportunities that we're providing to our artists. We're just constantly building and growing. We have a bunch of new features that are coming soon, new products that are coming soon. And, we're constantly trying to provide value to everybody to understand the future of the business, educational content, to know where we're going and where the business is going, so that artists, managers, agents, whomever, producers, whoever you are, can really get value by learning the game, understanding how it works, and not making the best opportunities for yourself. So, I mean, I'm private on Instagram. Feel free to throw a follow if you like, Mike B. Weiss on Instagram. But I'd send most people the good stuff's at UnitedMasters.
Cool.
We're building something special over here.
Yeah, and I can definitely confirm that. I see so much of you guys in the headlines, and I've been connected with a few people at UnitedMasters, and hell, I've been looking at switching to you guys for a while now, and for my next couple of releases. So I love what you guys are doing. Yeah, I know you guys would take care of me. That's for sure. I love what you guys are building. I love the music tech and companies that are always on the forefront of this, and UnitedMasters seems to do that. So kudos to you guys. Keep up the amazing work, and thank you for what you guys are contributing to the industry.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you, Michael. Have a great rest of the week, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.